Okay, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Good morning, everyone. Hopefully everyone had a good night's sleep. Yes. And you're all refreshed and ready to give your brains a good workout. And the reason for that is that you probably saw preliminary the presentation. It was sent to you before, I understand. So you know it's not about the techniques, right? It's not about the protocols. It's a more philosophical, conceptual presentation. This is the first time I'm doing it, and it could be the last. Because as we go along the logistics and sequence of our thought chain, there will be some conclusions and some my personal opinions that I can express, and they may not be politically correct. So I don't know if I will ever be able to repeat that presentation again. Hopefully, but you never know. When organizers of this conference asked me to give them several topics to speak on, this was a topic of my choice because that's something I wanted to talk to scanner therapists for a very long time about. And the reason being, well, we'll come to the reason of that. But let's just go with what it is. So I called the presentation The Healing Triangle and working on emotional and spiritual strata. Even though I wanted to call it, again, not quite politically correct, I wanted to call it the reason of ineffectiveness of scanner therapy. Yesterday we had a presentation, wonderful presentation of Dr. Joseph, who explained, or the day before yesterday as well, who explained to you why scanner therapy is effective, right? And I wanted to talk to you why sometimes it is not. And in order to get to that, we have to give a really a lot of thoughts of reasons of ineffectiveness. Why do we have people that sometimes just don't go? And that is our Russian expression. I know it has a little different meaning in the English language. Why don't you go? But it is some people that just don't respond. So why is that? And as you know, if in a general theory there is one fact that does not fit the theory, it means the theory is incorrect. So we want to see if we can find the reasons and if we can correct those reasons. So that was basically the reason of my presentation, and it was a lot of thought around it and theoretical, some conceptual positions that it's just my subjective opinion, which is formed, of course, on the basis of a long experience of working with a scanner and with a scanner therapist. So if you don't mind, so let's just go through that together with me. There is a journey together with me. So that's, we already talked about it. So why do we fail sometimes? Not often. More often than not, we are successful, of course, all of us are. And that's what keeps us going, our successes. Our failures, we always, as human beings, we always try to kind of disregard our failures because it affects our self-esteem, so we don't want to talk about it. However, it is very important to talk about it, and that's what we are going to do. You all heard and know the legend of scanner therapy, Dr. Yuri Garfinkel, who unfortunately departed too early, 1998, in the prime of him being a scanner therapist. And you probably also saw the thing that's called Individual Results of Scanner Therapy, written by Yuri. And those individual results, that's the first page of those results, were actually put together in January of 1998 when Dr. Yuri attended, well, we did the first scanner training outside of Russia was conducted in the Bahamas. And Dr. Alexander Venko and Dr. Yuri Garfinkel were present both. So they were trainers. The very first group was just 3 people, but they gave the push to scanner development all over the world, in England, in the States, and in other countries of Europe. So Dr. Yuri, at that point, we had lots of sessions. We were talking about many things, lots of things. And one of the things we talked about was the scanner philosophy. I asked him, well, come on, Yuri, well, you don't have anything to substantiate our observations, experience. Why wouldn't you just write down your experience? So that's what he did. He put together the summary of his individual results on just it was handwritten notes, which I still have. Very interesting. At some point, I think it will go to Scanner Museum, because you all probably saw it in a printed format. It circulates all over the world, but that's an original. So in that original, you can see that Dr. Yuri had almost 85 to 95% success rate in everything he did, in all groups of diseases and disorders. And some groups he didn't remember, so he didn't put it on paper. But really, in almost 85 to 95 success rate. So you would think it's the dream of any scanner therapist, and he should be happy with that, right? Well, not quite, because he was concerned about those 5 to 15% that did not respond the way he wanted them to respond. Basically, they didn't respond at all. And he was thinking about it, he was concerned about it, and that summary of his results was put together in January of 1998, and he died in 3 months later. So another thing that he wrote was the article that's called The Scanner Philosophy at the same time. And that article is actually translated, and you should have it on your USBs, because I put it for you over there. It's also in handwritten notes. Very interesting to see. And there he actually expressed his thoughts about the scanner therapy and scanner therapists. I think you all should read it, and when you have a chance, it will make you think. But in any case, before Yuri died, and that is not fact known to many, it was 3 months after he visited us in the Bahamas. So he got pneumonia, and he died of pneumonia on the background of serious kidney failure, which he got when working in Chernobyl for a long time, so radiation. And just before he died, you know how he was in the hospital, and Dr. Venko was visiting him and treating him, of course. So the very night before he died, you know how people just before they die, the energy, life energy, it's like a candle, right? Shines bright. So just the night before he died, Sasha Rivenko was there, and he told me about that. So Yuri looked at him, so I feel so much better, and as soon as I get better, I know now how to treat people. Now I know what, I found the answer. I'll tell you tomorrow all about it. I guess we will never know. So it will be up to us to come to the same conclusion and to find the reason for our failures. So that's a story. I'm sorry I spent a little bit more time than I thought on that, but I thought it would be interesting for you to know. In our own experience, we found 3 main reasons for blocked healing. I call it the blocked healing. And I want to know if you would agree with me on that. So the first and the most important reasons is that the client just doesn't believe that he can heal. It's in the belief system. Or he doesn't trust you as a therapist. He doesn't believe that you can help him. That's the first. doesn't believe, doesn't trust. The second, a kind of a guilt complex. I don't deserve to be healthy. You would think that not many people feel that way. Well, you would be surprised, because not many people tell you about it. Doesn't mean that they don't have it. I don't deserve because I did something and now I'm guilty. I don't deserve to be healthy. And the third one is even more surprising one, right? The client doesn't want to be healthy. Have you actually met people like that?
Yes.
And they will not tell you about it, because they will come to you and say, okay, I'm ready, I'm willing. But underneath all that, the victim mentality that they have actually helps them. Because, well, give me the reasons. Why? Why do you think it is happening? Attention, of course. They are hungry for attention. Their disease helps them to attract love. So it's the way of life for them. So if they lose their disease, they cannot say to their loved ones that they don't want to, really be healthy again or whole again. But underneath all that, it's the need to feel loved and need for attention. So in our experience, we found these three main reasons for, there are of course variations of that, but this what we found that blocks healing the mostly often. Now, when we look in the reasons, like underlying reasons for all that, we will find, well, in this case, you didn't do anything wrong as a SCENAR therapist, right? You may choose the best possible optimum procedure for a client and in the right place, in the right time. But do you think if client has that underneath, you will be effective as much as you would like to be? No. This is a program, right, that dictates their entire being and controls their entire being. Of course, SCENAR cannot not to help. So it will be improvement to a certain extent, but then you will see it's not going anywhere else. We call it a client plateaued. And then you have to dig deeper. Well, why are we saying deeper? Many things, a lot has been said about the connection between our emotions, our thought process, and our physical being, our physical existence. So mental and emotional, mind and the body, are interconnected and interdependent. A lot has been said about it, but not always we actually give ourselves a chance to think about it. And why is that happening? Health science for ages was saying about the mind-body connection, and yet we are not actually digging deep into the emotional and spiritual condition of our clients, and not many practices and modalities actually utilize the methods of improving that. I would even say that it's not just mind and the body are interconnected. I would say that our emotional and spiritual layers actually determine our physical condition. So they are primary and the physical is secondary. Well, let's prove it. And in order to prove it, I actually dug out, dove in theology, believe it or not. And us Russians, being atheists and not well educated in the area of theology, it's kind of almost was a revelation to me to see that actually the biblical structure of a man, as it presented in the Bible, is pretty much, what we see in the science and what we advocate in our practice, because the man is a three-part whole, is looked at. There are certain variations, of course, But overall in theology, man is looked at as a three-part whole. So in the middle there is a spirit. There is our spirit, and you can call it different names, but basically it's a spiritual area, spirit. It determines our identity. It determines who we are. It determines what we do in this life. It determines basically our connection to the rest of the universe. So that's in the very core of it. Then another layer around, sometimes some people call it mind, some people call it soul. It's basically just two sides of the same coin, but it does determine our personality. Not our identity, but our personality. There is a little difference in between, right? Between these two. So our personality includes you as a thinker, so your logical mind, then you as a feeler, or your emotional, mind, you can call it mind, and then your intent and your will, so you as a chooser. So that's your personality. And only after that, there is the body. There is a superficial layer. So out of all that, which one do you think is the determining one? It's the central. It's like the Mother Earth with the core in it, right? The core is our identity that determines everything else. We will come back to it a little bit later. But what is interesting, that as you see, the spirit and the soul or mind, they're not physical, they're not material in a way. Well, thoughts are material, but the spirit isn't. Like not in the sense that we understand it as a material world. So the core is actually information and energy, not the matter as we understand it. The interesting enough that science actually blends with religion now, and all discoveries of quantum physics confirm what we know and experience every day in our practice as scanner therapists. We know that Einstein was telling for how many years ago, said that E equals mc squared, shows you a connection between energy and matter. And that energy and matter are actually interdependent and interconnected. This is the most famous, probably, formulation that he made, and it is known for very, very many years. Now, lately, science is finding out how energy becomes matter, and the other way around. So the quantum physics actually discovering very interesting ways of looking at the material world and how the matter is created. The scientists lately are looking for what they call the God particle, right? God particle, and it's a boson. They call it boson. So they created the huge collider, hadron collider, just to find that God particle. But theoretically speaking, they can trace how the elementary particle of non-material light, photons, become material parts, become material particle, turn into electrons and positrons. So there are non-matter, non-material particles, they call bosons, and then the particles of matter, they called fermions. So the God particle that they're looking at is a Higgs boson. So that's the one that they're looking at, they want to find, and when they do find, it will be a proof of existence of a certain field in which the actually non-matter can become matter and the other way around. And it's all about the Big Bang Theory, and you can look actually in Wikipedia, and if you type meta creation in Wikipedia, you can find very interesting facts about what science actually already knows. So what science knows for sure is that at some point non-matter becomes matter, and matter can go back into non-matter, so they are interchangeable. Boson can become fermions and fermions can become bosons. The conditions actually is extreme heat in order for non-matter to become matter, and then that's what Big Bang is all about. is all about. So, coming down to what is first, the science is telling us now that energy is primary and the matter is secondary. So energy actually determines the form, the shape of the matter. But what is forming the energy? What is directing the energy? And then we go deeper and find that informational fields actually direct the energy. And here we come to the matrices. You probably all saw the movie Matrix, right? And you know that there is an imaginary world that is programmed in our mind, and we live in that world, but the world is not real. The world is just programs. It's just information. It's not even energy. It's just information that was implanted on our brain, and we live in that world like it's real. And we can die and we can hurt in that world because that's the power of our mind. That's the power of our programs. So our programs pretty much can do anything to your body. Do you think there is a phenomenon of Hollywood movies when you watch them and it's a fairy tale, but at the same time you watch them, you know what, there is something in it, right? There is something in it. And there are many of them, and there are like Men in Black, for example. Do you think like aliens are amongst us? The third grade teacher is actually an alien. So Matrix is one of my favorite movies, and just because it kind of gets that idea through that we all run on the programs, and we don't even know if the world around us is real or not. We don't know that. So informational matrix organized in a certain way directs energy. So energy is neutral. It's not positive, it's not negative. You know how your clients sometimes will tell you, well, I got some negative energy from someone. Have you heard that? Well, there is no such thing as negative energy. Energy is neutral by nature. It's the way it's organized and used can be positive or negative. But energy itself can be changed. That's why when your client tells you, I got some negative energy, you said, no worries, we will transform it. Because that's what you're going to do. You just will redirect it. You will transform it into creative force versus being destructive force. That's all. You change the vector. And you as scanner therapist, you know how to do it. As long as the client has energy, you always can change the direction of it and create something out of destructive force. Dr. Joseph was telling you about that. So, informational matrix organized in a certain way will direct the energy, and energy will create matter, create form. The fields, informational fields that actually create form were first described by Rupert Sheldrake, and he gave it a name, a term. He called them morphogenic fields. Morphogenic fields are known, and Robert Becker in his work with electricity describes the salamander growing limbs, right? And some other cases where some form of life can actually create a shape, create a form where there is no form. So if you cut a leg of a salamander, it will grow it back. Why? How can it do that? It's because the energetic matrix and informational matrix, they retain for longer time than usually we can. But if salamander can do it, if it's theoretically possible, why is not it possible for us? And you saw the presentation of Dr. Joseph, and you remember the case of his little boy, 1.5-year-old boy, who didn't have any shoulder bone, and he grew within 8 years. He grew the perfect shoulder bone which fits his body. That is possible. So, your scanner tool in your hands Do you think it can be a miracle tool that actually can help the body to recreate or keep the informational matrix, then direct energy along that informational matrix, and if you support it well enough, in time the form can be actually created, the substance can be created, and we can see it, guys. It's called regeneration, right? And we can see it happening in many situations. We would like it to be a rule. Of course, we would like to grow a new structure in every, magic touch of a scanner, and, new limbs growing. And I think actually it will come to it. I think originally, right now, scanner can, for example, help in a healing of a heart after a heart attack with no scar. Right? The scar tissue is a compromise of the body. It's not a full regeneration, it's just a compromise, because the body forms a scar where it doesn't have enough information or energy to build the actual structure, to rebuild the structure that was lost. So in order to continue functioning, the body needs some kind of a support, so it forms the connective tissue, which forms the scar. So the scar is a compromise. However, if we give the body enough information and provide it with enough energy, then it's very possible that actual structure will regenerate on the place of the lost one. You think it's possible? Yeah, absolutely. I believe it is. And we see it in everyday life. As scanner therapists, it's happening. And again, we would like it to be more rule than exception, right? Well, interestingly enough, what we just said about the information being in the basis of everything is confirmed by the Bible. Because the Bible says, and this is probably one of the most commonly quoted phrases in the Bible, that in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. So what is the Word? Word is information. So Bible tells you right there that the information wasn't the informational matrix, was in the beginning of everything. And the information actually is ultimate creative force, which is God. Everyone understands God differently, and our systems of beliefs are different. However, you can't deny that there is organizing force in the universe that unites it all. And you can call it the universe as a system, which we do as a scanner therapist too, because we advocate the systemic universe. You can call it God, but there is out there the structure that is beyond you. It's bigger than you. And you as a system, you have to comply with the rules, kind of go with the flow. And if you comply with your role, because you are born with a certain role in this system, and if you comply with that role, then you feel happy because you're doing what you're supposed to do on this earth. And isn't that what religion is all about as well? So right now we're seeing the blend of science and religion every step of the way. And there is no contradiction. There is actually should not be any struggle who is right and who is not, because everyone is saying the same thing. So that's already we mentioned about that. So information directs energy and creates informational morphogenic fields. Talking about the universe as a system, we just have to remember that universe itself is the biggest system, and it